Hello and welcome to Video Rental, your retro movie hub. Join us as we rewind through the iconic films of the 70s, 80s, and the occasional 90s gems. From cult classics to blockbuster hits and even some infamous flops, we're covering it all. So grab some popcorn, get cozy, and let's dive into the wonderful world of retro cinema together. How you guys doing today?
Great, how are you?
I'm good.
Doing really good. We've been having a super cold winter here in western North Carolina.
It's quite chilly.
We had a heat wave today. It finally reached like the 40s. So,
and it's supposed to be like that for the next week.
Yeah,
so.
we're thawing out here, but it's been a good time to stay inside and watch movies.
So today we're going to be doing the movie Forrest Gump. So, Doug, when was the first time you saw this movie?
Ooh, I saw it in theaters. I cannot remember the year. It was the year it come out.
94.
94.
Yeah.
So I was, just out of high school. So I went and saw it, and just everybody was amazed. You seen that movie? I hear it's a true story. You know how many times I heard that one? Mm-hmm. That really happened.
Derek, what about you?
So, in 1994, I would have been in 4th grade. So I did not have a chance to go see it in the movie theater. In fact, it really wasn't even on my radar at the time because, at 4th grade, I wasn't even paying attention to those kind of
babies.
Yeah.
Babies.
But I'll tell you my first memory of Forrest Gump and first time seeing it. I don't know if y'all remember, but I believe that Forrest Gump came out on a double VHS. You'll have to fact check me on that one.
I'm pretty sure it did.
I'm going to say it did because it's like 2.5 hours long.
But I remember seeing Forrest Gump in Video Stop Rental.
Oh, boy. Yeah,
here in Candler. And I can remember it being the double VHS and being just blown away like that. Because there was like maybe one other movie that was like that, like Braveheart and of course I remember when Titanic came out.
You got the 2 boxes with the rubber band around them.
Yeah, but
Godfather did I remember the double VHS on Godfather.
Mm-hmm, yeah, but I think Forrest Gump was a double VHS. So here's how I saw the movie. Actually, I was first introduced to the movie through the soundtrack because I had an older sister and she was in high school at the time the movie came out. And so she had a boyfriend with a fast car at the time. And I can remember going out on a couple of trips with them to, get pizza or something like that. And I was, the annoying third wheel that went along. And but her boyfriend had the Forrest Gump CD. Oh. And he would play a lot of music on it. And, I recognized the cover of of Tom Hanks sitting on the park bench. And by the way, I think there were actually 2 different releases of the soundtrack. There was the actual music composed by the composer, and then Alan Silverstreet, I think is his name. Yeah. And then there was another release that was all the music.
Yeah, all the songs.
From the 60s and 70s and so on.
CCR on there.
Yeah.
It's a very good album.
Yeah,
so much good stuff.
So he had the soundtracks of the different music from like CCR or
nice.
I think Freebird is on there.
Yeah,
and it's just a great cross section of Americana music.
You can't talk
I can remember
Alabama.
I can remember riding around in that car and listening to that music, and then. So one day they rented the movie, and somehow I was able to finagle my way in there to watch it. And I was probably, at that time, it was probably about 5th grade or so, a little bit older. And it really just didn't impact me that much. But I can remember, the war scenes. I remember that specifically.
Yeah.
But I really didn't get back into Forrest Gump until later on when I was much older, and I watched it again and totally appreciated it for what it was.
Oh yeah.
So
I want to say it was probably definitely the late 90s when I first saw it, and I know we would rent from Stage Door on Patton Avenue. That was like best. I mean, they had everything, but and I do, Derek. I'm pretty sure. I think you are right. I do remember it being a double VHS.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna look that up right now.
And I actually also
I think the Google machine.
I think my dad had the soundtrack as well, and for some reason I remember it. I think it was double disc as well. Because I think it had like 15 songs on one CD, and then another CD had another like 15 songs
Did
on.
one of the, I don't know why I'm thinking, one of them just had a picture of the feather on it, and one was him on the bench.
I don't know. You remember?
I
don't know. You might remember that better than me.
I don't know.
But
let's go that far.
I feel like it was a double CD as well. But I mean, I remember loving it when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, it was bangers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, I think that was another one of those kind of movies that was kind of a staple in our house that we would watch like at least once a year. And then, of course, quoting it like crazy, and so memorable quotes in this movie. And
yeah, we'll get to that. It's like it's chock full of quotes,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I'm gonna read the plot of the movie. The history of the U.S. from the 1950s to the 70s unfolds through the eyes of an Alabama man with the IQ of 75, who achieves greatness despite his limitations. Yet his one true love remains elusive.
That's it's so dead on, but it's like such a simple plot.
It is,
like
yeah.
So much happens.
Well, see, I think that's why I was talking to you about this, Doug. I think that's why I was struggling between so many different websites had a different synopsis for the movie. Like it was all different, so that's why I was struggling to try to figure out what was the best one for it.
Everybody saw something differently, or took it differently.
Did you find anything, Derek?
Go back now. I was looking up a fact.
Oh no, you're good.
Sorry.
I just read the plot of the movie. You want me to read it again?
No. Oh yeah, the plot. Yeah. So going into Forrest Gump, I had no idea really what it was about. But the first impression that you have is Tom Hanks and his accent that I don't know where he pulled that from.
You'll find out.
But yeah, upon a first impression, to me, that's the most memorable part of the whole thing.
Got the Forrest running Halloween costume.
I'm gonna go home now. I'm kind of tired.
I just run till I hit the ocean. I figured I'd run the other way.
All right, Derek, do you want to read us some?
Yep, let's go on with fast facts here. So the release date was July the 6th, 1994. Now, I remember when it came out because when the movie came out, I was actually on a church youth trip, and there was an option that you were given if you were old enough, like the youth leader took some of the kids to see Forrest Gump. I was not old enough. The other option was to go see Angels in the Outfield.
Oh.
So I remember that summer. I remember 1994. Some other interesting things, because I was trying to think back, like 1994 was a huge year for films.
Oh, yeah.
So listen to what else came out in 1994. This was a year of absolute bangers. So you had, obviously, Forrest Gump, which was the highest grossing film of 1994, which took in $678 million. Here's what else came out in 1994. The Lion King. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing that in the movie theater for sure. True Lies also came out in 1994. The Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. Listen to these bangers, man. Just one after another. The Flintstones movie, which was terrible. And Dumb and Dumber.
Dude.
We got to do an episode on Dumb and Dumber.
All right.
That'd be perfect for Doug.
Also, guess what else came out in 1994? Speed.
Wow.
The Mask. Pulp Fiction. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
So that was the year that Jim Carrey had the 3 biggest movies
That's
of
right.
his career. I mean, all in the same
Mask,
year.
Ventura.
And Dumb and Dumber.
And there's one more that came out in 1994. Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah, the one that got forgotten, I guess, pretty much.
Yeah, so think
sucks.
about that
I've
year.
never heard of that.
Year in film. Oh my gosh.
I know, that's crazy.
That's crazy. We probably will never have another
Talk about
lineup like that again.
Spoiled for choices
I know.
in the movie.
Think about that in 1994, being able to go.
Yeah.
And of course, movie tickets back then were like what, $3?
$3,
Yeah.
$3.50.
And being able to go and see just one absolute masterpiece after another.
And you could, how some of them would have like way longer runs. You could go to one theater and be 2 of these movies playing and be like, let's just do a double feature.
Yeah, man, that's crazy that 1994 just had so many classics like that. So, anyway, IMDb gives the score 8.8 for Forrest Gump.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tomato meter, critic score gives it 75%. Audience score, 95%. I've never run into a single person who doesn't like Forrest Gump.
Oh, you will.
I'm sure there's reviews.
Doug's got some.
We have the internet, of course, to
There's some keyboard
introduce
warriors
us
out there
to
that just
levels of stupidity we've never known before. But personally,
Yeah.
I've never sat face to face and talked with a person who didn't like
they
Forrest
didn't
Gump.
like it.
I mean, there's something in there for everybody.
Yeah.
Of course, the budget, we talked about what it brought in, $678 million, but they made it for $55 million. So, wow, that was a massive payday.
They made a little money.
Runtime, 2 hours and 22 minutes, which was pretty long for then.
Yeah, for the day. And now that's not a long movie
And
at all
I can
now.
say for a movie that runs that long, there is no point in the movie when it drags.
No.
Like there's no point when you're watching it and you're thinking, man, can we just get on to the whatever scene?
Even when he's explaining all the different ways you can get shrimp,
Yeah,
it's still like you're in
just,
it.
The movie captivates you from scene one and keeps you enthralled.
Definitely.
It was nominated for 13 Academy Awards and won 6 Oscars. Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Writing, Best Film Editing, and Best Effects. So it cleaned up well at the Academy Awards. And well deserving of all of those. But let's talk about the cast. So, of course, Tom Hanks. This is one of the roles of his lifetime.
It's peak Tom Hanks.
Yeah. You'll remember, of course, Tom Hanks from such classics as Big and then The Burbs.
Yeah.
All right. Classic stuff from the 80s. Turner and Hooch. Remember that one? He was also in, later on, he would be in Castaway, another great Rob Zemeckis film. He was
It's another one he has a bad hair day in.
Yeah. He was in Philadelphia, which oddly, I've never seen that movie.
Never seen it? It's good. It's actually really good.
It's like,
And I want to say that came out like maybe the year previous, like 93 or something.
It's got Denzel in it too.
it's kind of like that Schindler's List kind of good movie.
Yeah.
It's a hard story.
It's
It's a rough story.
So, and then Tom Hanks was also in Toy Story, which would be 95, I believe.
30-year franchise.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing original Toy Story in the theater and being blown away. I saw it on Thanksgiving Day. Yeah, I definitely remember that one. Apollo 13, another great one.
Yep.
You're right. Like, man, 90s Tom Hanks was just kicking butt and taking names. I mean, everything he was in during that time period was so
gold.
good. Yeah. And, of course, we've already spoken about Saving Private Ryan here when we did our Steven Spielberg tournament bracket. So, Tom Hanks, one of the greatest actors of all time. Love his acting, hate his politics, but that's another podcast for another day. Robin Wright was also in the movie, and I'm assuming she played Jenny.
Yep.
She was in Unbreakable. They call me Mr. Glass. Is it that Unbreakable?
No. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's her.
Is it?
She played his wife, his estranged wife.
I was totally thinking of another Unbreakable.
No, that was her.
Is that her? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Y'all forgot about that, didn't you?
Yeah.
She's also in Beowulf and The Princess Bride. There's another one we've got to do on this show.
Which I still haven't seen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Let's not glass
Get
over that.
out of here! You call yourself a fan of the '80s, and you
See, when we do that one, we're gonna have a virgin. Somebody you actually meet somebody.
that's
I've
going to be an
never seen it
interesting
before.
one because
It just wasn't on my radar.
It needs to be right now, sir.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
And then, of
Media
course,
age. Jeez.
when you talk about Tom Hanks' cast, you cannot forget Lieutenant Dan, Gary Sinise, who is also in Apollo 13,
Yep.
Ransom, and like a bajillion episodes of CSI.
Yeah, it was like 700 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sally Field, also in the movie. She played in some movies I never heard of. Gidget and the Flying Nun. Somehow I missed.
That's old.
that's old
school,
stuff. Yeah, that's before Smoking the Bandit.
Yeah.
Yep, also in Smoking the Bandit. Mrs. Doubtfire. Now, that was a great classic of the 90s with Robin Williams. She played Peter Parker's grandma in Spider-Man. And so also in Lincoln, a movie which I did not enjoy.
I still haven't seen it.
It's painfully draggy and slow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I always think of Abe Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. When that one always
Not
pops in
that
my
one.
head. Not that. That's a different one.
So I forgot about her playing Aunt May.
Yeah.
I said grandma, but I should have said Aunt May. Haley Joel Osment, before The Sixth Sense, was in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, early.
That's the I See Dead People kid. So for those of you that are wondering. Also in AI, Artificial Intelligence, which was a terrible Steven Spielberg movie. One of the few duds. Pay It Forward, Secondhand Lines.
Have you seen Secondhand Lines?
I have.
I really enjoyed Secondhand
Yeah.
Lines.
It's
But
got.
you haven't seen Princess Bride.
We're not going to let him get away from that one. This movie also had Mykelti Williamson, whom I'm guessing plays Bubba.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also in Con Air.
Oh, yeah.
We might have to have a span of Nicolas Cage movies.
Oh, definitely. Con Air, Free Willy.
You have to heat the trilogy, you know. Con Air, The Rock, Face Off. You know, his action trilogy.
Yep. What about Snake Eyes? Screenplay by Eric Roth, who also worked on The Postman, Ali, or Ali. I guess that's the Muhammad Ali, right?
Yeah.
Movie. Munich, which was an okay Steven Spielberg film. It was just okay. The Good Shepherd, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, A Star Is Born, and Dune. Not Dune of the 80s, but Dune of 2021. The inspiration for Forrest Gump came from the novel written by Winston Groom. The film was produced by Wendy Finnerman, Charles Nieworth, and Steve Starkey.
I've said this before, Derek, but I'm so glad you can pronounce all these names.
And, you know, I did not know it was from a book.
I didn't either.
I know. I've never read the book.
I was telling Doug, I really thought the director, I thought he just came up with it. I didn't know this was a book.
I mean, what could be in the book that they didn't put in the movie? That'd be the question. Now it kind of intrigues you. You want to read it.
Yeah.
Like, what's in there?
Yeah.
I don't know. This was definitely a case where I would say that the movie far outpaced the book.
Probably.
Like, I didn't even know the book was a thing. Whereas, you know, like with, for instance, Stephen King, a lot of the books are huge.
Yeah.
Or like Michael Crichton, like the books are huge bestsellers before they become a movie. Music. Now, the music, I'm not talking about the tracks from American bands and so on that are used throughout the movie. I'm talking about the orchestration, which is great.
Yeah.
The theme song with the feather falling.
Makes that movie so much more powerful
than
it already is.
Yeah. And the running theme. Dun, 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 dun. That was all done by Alan Silvestri. And this dude is a dadgum legend. listen to what's on his resume. Not only Forrest Gump, Back to the Future, the whole trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is an amazing theme right there. Predator 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Need an Alan Silvestri soundtrack.
The Abyss. Super Mario Bros.
Which is Derek's favorite.
Are we talking about the one from the 90s?
I was wondering if you were going to ask that.
Now, the Super Mario Bros. that came out a couple of years ago, the CG, that one's good.
We might just have to do an episode on Super Mario Bros.
Some things are best left in the past.
That's a rough one, man.
He did the theme for Avengers, and then Ready Player One, and just tons and tons of other movies. The guy's he's like a legend. So, love the soundtrack here. This movie was filmed all over the place. They filmed in Georgia, Maine, South Carolina. I know the Vietnam scenes were shot in South Carolina because I watched the Netflix documentary on how they made it.
Yeah.
They filmed in Utah, Arizona, and a lot of these
South Carolina
locations on here are, of course, when Forrest Gump is running across the nation. So they move across just to imagine. And some of those are like 5-second shots.
Yeah, they had to move a whole.
Yeah, they go there to get one shot.
One shot. Yep.
California. They also shot in Montana, Washington D.C. Everybody knows the scene at the Washington Monument. There. Yeah. And of course, Asheville, North Carolina.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I could find, and for some reason I don't see it in the movie. I mean, you guys maybe. But it says it's something they were filmed on the Biltmore Estate scene. It was something that was filmed at the Biltmore Estate. So I don't know. I couldn't really tell.
I can't think of what that scene would be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. Of course, the director. Let's talk about Robert Zemeckis. He's also a legend.
Mm-hmm.
Man, just listen to this resume. Romancing the Stone. Back to the Future, 1, 2, and 3. Used Cars. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yep.
There's another great one.
We'll have to do that one, yeah.
I hope they don't remake that one.
No.
They need to leave that one for what it is. And same thing with Back to the Future. Please do not try and remake that. Death Becomes Her, Castaway, Flight. I mean, Robert Zemeckis, just an awesome filmmaker, and have enjoyed everything on that list. Are we doing trivia?
Yeah.
Trivia! The things you didn't know and didn't notice. Here we go. Tom Hanks earned an estimated $60 million from Forrest Gump. He chose performance-based pay over an upfront salary, and he and director Rob Zemeckis paid for some of the movie's scenes out of their own pockets. Did not know that. Mm-hmm. Hanks paid for the iconic Run Across America scene, which is almost cut for budget reasons. You could see why that would get expensive.
Yeah.
I would say that was well worth the money.
Yeah.
Because this is, as much as this is a movie about Forrest Gump's journey, it's a movie about America.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It's Americana. The first Bubba Gump Shrimp Company restaurant and market opened in 1996 on Cannery Row in Monterey, California. As of October 2022, there were 35 Bubba Gump Shrimp Company locations worldwide, including 22 locations in the U.S. and 13 international locations. Have you guys been there and ate at Bubba Gump?
Yeah, I just did last week.
And where'd you go?
Orlando.
I've been to the one in Charleston, and me and the wife went there on our honeymoon.
Which is not there anymore.
It's not there?
Mm-mm. We just went to Charleston last year. Yeah, they closed it down.
Man, that's a bummer. That's a really cool restaurant if you can get in one, because they've got tons of movie artifacts and memorabilia in there. And then the menu's sort of themed, of course, around the movie. Mm-hmm. I think we got the coconut shrimp.
The coconut shrimp is amazing. Yeah. That's my favorite. Well, see, and they also what the waiter will do. He'll ask you trivia questions about the movie.
Get then Lieutenant Dan Lobster. No.
Oh my god. And then those also, they have like little signs that say "Run Forrest Run" or "Stop Forrest Stop" or whatever. And if you put it up to get the waiter's attention to bring him over.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I ain't never been in one.
It's cool if you can get in
good.
one.
It's good food.
Man, that's a bummer. I didn't know that about the one in Charleston.
Yeah, because we were gonna go because we were there. We were staying in Charleston for a week, and we were walking. Yeah, it's a different restaurant.
So
now.
I remember a lot of the memorabilia that was hanging in there. They had the Nike shoes.
Mm-hmm.
They had a version of Forrest's white suit with the blue plaid shirt.
They have the bench.
They had the bench.
That you can sit on.
Oh, nice.
They had Forrest's Vietnam GI set up, his gear. They had one of the wheelchairs in there from Lieutenant Diane.
That's awful.
Yeah, they just had a lot of cool stuff in there.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So, novelist Winston Groom imagined John Goodman in the title role. Now, that's hard for me to picture.
Well, keep reading.
That may have had something to do with the fact that in the novel, Forrest is 6'6" and weighs 240 pounds. Yeah, John Goodman could have played that role, I guess.
Jeez. And
So-
he's run across America?
I guess.
When I think of John Goodman playing that role, the only thing I can see in my mind is him being the corrupt Bible salesman in Oh Brother, Where Art
Yeah.
Thou?
Oh yeah.
Because he does play sort of like a southern
He's got that
character.
eye patch.
Got the eye patch on?
Thanks for the fricasseed, boys. I was feeling a bit peckish.
He's got the Klan hat with one eye. That's
That movie.
Jim Hanks, himself an actor and filmmaker, doubled for his older brother on set, including in numerous sequences featuring Forrest's high-knee, arm-pumping run. And, of course, the running scenes from Forrest Gump just spawned one of the quotes that everybody's used. Run, Forrest, run!
Oh, yeah.
According to Jim, Tom had other doubles, but they couldn't do the run.
Only his brother?
Which is apparently, something they used to make fun of each other about in the family. Jim has also done voice substitution work for Tom, including Toy Story's Sheriff Woody in video games and other talking toys. There's a snake in my boots. Young Forrest, Michael Connor Humphrey's lyrical way of speaking was in his natural voice. When Tom Hanks was searching for a voice for Forrest, he heard Humphrey speak, and it clicked, inspiring the adult Forrest's own voice and Hanks' Oscar-winning performance. Very
from the
interesting.
little kid. That's neat, yeah.
Yeah, I actually watched an interview with him about it, and he said he sat down with the kid because the director was like, well, how are we going to do his voice? And he's like, well, why don't we just do it the way he does it? Mm-hmm. And he would literally sit down and talk to the kid just like a normal person, just talk to him about how his life and his he was saying that, like, he's like, so what's your dad doing? He's like, my dad makes grease. Yeah. And he's like, what do you mean he makes grease? He makes grease for like lipstick and cars, and he just kept on going. It's such a
slow
funny,
southern drawl.
So, but he said he eventually grew out of that. He said he still knows the kid, and he actually became a veteran in the Afghan War or whatever.
Wow.
So
Yeah, nice little tidbits.
Yeah.
All right, that's my part.
Doug, do you want to? Oh, thanks, Derek. Do you want to read us some reviews from these lovely people?
Let's see.
Find somebody who hates the movie. I want to hear what they have to say.
Okay, this first one here. Okay. 1 out of 10. A thoroughly nasty piece of work. David Topping, November 5th, 2005. Okay. This film clearly falls into the love-hate category. I think it's one where either you like the principal idea of optimism or you detest the idea that life is simply handed to you and all you have to do is throw it away. I, for one, hated this film, not for the acting, which I didn't rate very highly, although Sinise put in a good performance in my view. I'm even a fan of Hank's other work, but did not particularly enjoy his performance here. No, I hated this film for its message, which I found to be so central and pervasive that I couldn't enjoy any of the rest of the film's supposed qualities. The message I got from this film was that it makes no difference what you do in life, no matter how hard you work, how talented you are, or how much you believe. If you just let life go past you, If you just let life go past you, obey, and be good, then you will be a huge success.
He totally missed it.
It's a belief I see more and more, and one which I find abhorrent. Strangely enough, it seems that this belief is becoming true. Make an average film with average acting, and you too can have a huge box office success and win a couple Oscars. Perhaps this is then a truly brilliant and ironic piece of work. I still hated it. Wow.
Hated it. I abhor your review, sir.
Yeah. He probably had to look up how to spell abhor just to put it in there.
Wow. That's truly terrible that you can watch the film and miss the entire point of it.
Wow.
Oh, and Doug, I will tell you they were so long that the only reason I got them each one on each page is because they were just too long to fit on multiple ones on one page.
Well, this is one of those polarizing films. It's gonna, everybody's gonna have opinions about it, but you have a right to, have your opinion and it be wrong. Okay.
Of course.
Okay, this guy gave it a 10 out of 10. Real Message, Cole Phelps, May 30th, 2016. My friend suggested me to watch this movie. I didn't expect anything out of it, just wanted to pass some time. After the movie ended, I felt like I had never seen anything like this before. It even made me write a review. Such a beautifully made movie has got everything. Teaches you about the power of love and innocence. Sometimes we take our life as granted. And we all think. And we all.
I know it. It's just
all we think is
this is a 2 a.m. post.
Don't have anything. This movie tells you how to realize and work with all that you have, no matter how you are. Brilliant way of telling a story for a young boy, Forrest, and his life, not only through the eye of Forrest, but a mother, a friend, and general people. The way your innocence wins over anyone you come across is exceptional, and you will leave behind is love and respect. Magnificent movie. All right.
See, there's a person who got it.
Yeah, they got it. They figured it. They figured out what he was going after. Oh, I'm gonna tell it. Okay, 4 out of 10 on this one. Overrated melodrama. Neil, June 28th, 2007. Let me take a deep breath. Most opinions have already seen the light of day here, so I'll be brief. As a middle-aged Brit... Oh.
You're not reading it in the right accent, dude. If you do it in the British voice, it can be condescending to
Yeah, let's hear that British accent.
Yeah, but I still got all my teeth. As a middle-aged Brit who has relatively positive life, I positively loathed the premise on which this film was based. If you are good-hearted, then you will triumph against adversity, no matter what obstacles life throws into your path. With the subtext, in America. Sorry, it just ain't true, even in America. I'm afraid to say that I loathe the way that America took this message to its heart, even more than I loathed the message, and I've always disliked the way the Academy often favors disease of the week performances. But let me be fair. Well, when are you going to start? There's a short sequence where Gump tries to ask Jenny if his son is normal, maybe 20 seconds in total. Hank's performance in this sequence is nothing short of phenomenal, and on its own justifies his Oscar in this film, even if the rest of it is nothing special. Well, I love your review.
Sounds like his favorite character is Ebenezer Scrooge. Yikes.
Okay. Here's this guy's got an 8 out of 10. A man with a mental disability lives through and takes part in many points of history. Well, that's pretty good. March 15th, 2016. Without a doubt, one of the greatest films ever to be shown on the silver screen, and only solidified by a stellar performance by the cast and crew. One of the few films everyone can say that they have at least seen once. This movie deserved every Oscar it won and will go down in history as one of the best and well-done films ever to be created. Many can say that this film does have some minor, very minor issues, things such as questionable moral depicted by the love interest Jenny. Throughout the course of the entire film, some could take umbrage. Umbrage.
I'm gonna have to Google that one.
with less than amazing special effects, though the time of production should be added to the context. Yeah, it was amazing when they did that.
Yeah,
that was like never been done before. Putting somebody in that, they inserted it into actual news footage.
All right, last one.
Okay, this one's Mr. Ebert. So let's see what he thinks.
A 2-pager.
No, just one.
Okay.
Okay. Forrest Gump is a unique film that defies conventional genre. Tom Hanks plays the titular character, a man with an IQ of 75 who finds himself involved in every major event in American history from the 1950s to the 80s with his innocence and good intentions. Forrest navigates through the Vietnam War, becomes a football hero, and even meets Elvis and Presidents Kennedy and Nixon. The film's use of special effects seamlessly integrates Forrest into historic situations, making it seem as though he's really there. Director Robert Zemeckis masterfully weaves together comedy, drama, and social commentary, creating a mediation on American history and culture. Through Forrest's journey, the film explores themes of love, friendship, and the power of innocence. His relationship with Jenny, played by Robin Wright, serves as a counterpoint to his straight-arrow American life, as she delves into the counterculture movement. Overall, Forrest Gump is a magical and ingenious film that will leave you laughing, crying, and reflecting on American history and society. 4 out of 4 stars.
Booyah.
There you go. From the man himself.
Well, thank you, Doug.
You are very welcome.
I know that was a lot.
Doug learned some new vocabulary words in those reviews. I don't know if y'all could tell, like titular.
Titular? Yeah.
Well,
Umbrage.
Yeah.
The problem was I just couldn't.
I loathed it.
I could not find any short reviews.
Yeah.
People, they're either, I mean, there was middle of the road, of course, but it's just like if they loved it, they really loved it, or if they hated it, they really hated it. Which
some of the people that hated it were not Americans, like the Brit. Like, I get it if you're looking at it from another nationality, but the themes that Forrest Gump deal with are completely universal. I don't know how that would push anybody away, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Well, everybody has a problem with him being, innocent and that he gets a free pass.
Maybe if the movie was made about a British kid, the guy would have liked it.
Maybe so.
Maybe he meant Winston Churchill or something. The Queen.
That's Forrest Gump number 2. Okay, let's do.
Forrest.
So now we're gonna go through our scene by scene breakdown of the movie. So I'm gonna read scene 1. Forrest Gump sits on a bench, waiting for a bus, and begins to tell his life story to strangers. My mama always said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Forrest recounts his childhood in Alabama with his loving mother and teaches him valuable life lessons. Forrest has to get leg braces because his spine is more crooked than a politician. Forrest starts school when we meet Jenny, and they become best friends. Forrest is chased by some bullies and is able to run out of his braces. Now he can run like the wind. We get the infamous line, "Run, Forrest, run." So like I was saying, guys, there's so much that happens. Like, this is literally, from what I just described there, literally like the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, so much happens in this movie.
Love the introduction of the movie. I mean, the first scene is you get that theme,
Mm-hmm.
the feather falling, and it lands on Forrest's shoulder or knee or whatever.
Yeah. I think and then that's when he grabs it and puts it in his book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you meet Forrest Gump there, and from the moment he speaks, you are completely drawn in to because he's such a peculiar character.
Yeah.
He's quirky. He's, as I talked about in the reviews, he's innocent, and he's a great storyteller. And so he has you captured from the very moment of go. And of course, that line, "Life is like a box of chocolates." You know, that's the theme of the movie, right there. Yeah. I mean, the people who reviewed it, who hated it, they completely missed the entire point of the movie. Is that life throws so many crazy things at you, and what it isn't about necessarily what happens to you; it's how you respond.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie is full of heartbreak. It's full of tragedy. It's full of loss. It's full of grief. Think about all the people that move in and out of Forrest's life and the challenges that he faces. Like
he didn't let any of it break him.
No,
right.
and he just keeps on
going. They miss the entire point of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's all summed up there, and I love that in the very first lines of the movie. Like, boom. It tells you exactly what this story is going to be about, and I just love the whole growing up scene and seeing him as a child and the challenges that he faced, the bullies, and of course the love story between he and Jenny. I mean, it starts.
Who hasn't
it
had
starts
some
right
kind
there.
of awkward love for when you're a kid? You don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't see how you could not be drawn in by the beginning of this movie, because you're seeing this kid who's just disadvantaged and made fun of and different, and you're seeing how he battles through it, and how that the relationship between Forrest and his mama is so pure.
Oh, yeah.
And so precious. It's like anybody can watch that and just get emotional about it, because
the fact that she's willing to do anything she can for him to be in a normal school and to try to have a normal life.
You don't want to have him have anything that would hold him back.
She don't want people treating him different.
Right. Yeah.
Because they kept on trying to push him into like a special needs school.
I'll tell you, I love the running scene. Like, I love when he gets his braces on and then he runs and the braces fall off, and Run Forrest Run. Like, the theme.
The look on the kid's face, though, it was just...
That's iconic. But I'll tell you one of the scenes out of there that I really, really love, that's maybe a little bit underrated, is Forrest's first day of school. And he gets on the bus. "Hi, I'm Forrest Gump." "Well, I'm Dorothy. I'm the bus driver," whatever her name is.
Yeah. "Well, we ain't strangers no more."
And then he gets on the bus and he walks down the aisle. "Seats taken."
Little turds. That's what I wanted to say
taken.
When all those kids were saying that to him. I mean,
if you've ever been bullied or insulted or put down as a kid, oh my gosh, you ever rode a school bus, you identified immediately with that. And then, of course, Jenny opens up the seat, and that's where their whole relationship begins. Yeah. I mean, it's just so pure and innocent and childlike. The casting is brilliant.
Yeah.
The scene, I just can't say enough about it. I mean, how could you not love that? You unless you just grew up, in a ivory tower somewhere, and you just didn't experience any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Growing up, I mean, it's perfect.
Well, one of the things that I loved, is right at the beginning there when he starts talking to that, I guess she was like a nurse or whatever, and she's not really paying attention to him. She's reading her book or whatever, and he keeps on going.
Yeah,
he keeps on going with his story.
He draws her in. She's like, "Those must be comfortable shoes."
Yeah.
She's like, "My feet hurt."
But you see in the very beginning of the movie how much adversity is thrown at young Forrest and the things that he has to overcome just to have a quote-unquote normal life.
Well, and what the doctor said, I mean, literally, he had a crooked spine. I mean, the fact that he needed those braces just to be able to walk normal, because I guess he would just be hunched over
I love
the rest of his life.
This movie really resonated with me because this is like that
Did you have braces?
era I grew in, and
really
southern Alabama, and just the look, the moss covered trees, everything just really bring me back to being a kid. And the southern doctor, that I can't get that image of him sitting there smoking a cigarette. Big belly with the suspenders on. Come here, boy. And he's slinging them around the table. And he's putting on his magic shoes, because his mama said they'd take him anywhere.
Yeah.
Because he's like, well, I mean, literally, he's like, he's got a crooked spine just like a politician.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got a crooked spine like a politician.
Yeah,
he has no idea what that means.
One thing about this movie that it really captured was the language, the street language, the sayings, the euphemisms of that culture in the Deep South. The only ones who really do that very well, besides this movie, are like, "Oh brother, where art thou?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The brothers that make those movies. They do it in No Country for Old Men.
Is it the
Coen Brothers?
Coen Brothers, yeah.
Big Lebowski, Fargo.
Toad.
They really focus on little idiosyncrasies and sayings particular to that culture, and that's one thing that the writing in this story does brilliantly. Like you pick up on those.
Yeah. Well, see, there's one thing I was telling Doug, because I recently just watched it for probably the first time in probably 20 years. But I was telling Doug, I totally misremembered how this movie was taking place. Like, I for some reason in my mind, while he was telling his story, I was thinking like it was going from different time periods, different, back and forth. But the way he is actually telling it, like I saw just recently, is he's telling it in order. It starts out when he's a kid, and then it goes from there. But for some reason, I don't know why I misremembered he was telling it. It was going back and forth.
Well, the only thing that changed is his audience.
Yeah.
Because every era, he'd look back and somebody else is on the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or somebody has to go catch the
Another
bus.
thing that you see in the beginning of this movie is that Jenny's path is kind of already chosen for her in that she comes from a troubled home life.
Yeah.
Abusive home
life. And this abuse is going to plague her for the rest of her life, and like she's going to really struggle with the trauma that she has at home.
Well, I think that's when they find out that her dad gets arrested, and
he's
then
the alcoholic.
Yeah, and she moves in with her aunt. I think that's what it is.
Her mama.
Remember that scene where like they're running from her dad, and her dad's like yelling and cussing and they go in the corn. Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far, far away from here.
What's Forrest say? The one thing about I didn't like was her mama's dogs. That's what he took from all that.
Well, and see, because of that, that's what caused them to become even better friends, because she lived closer to him, so they became just best of friends.
Peas and carrots.
Yeah, and it's interesting the pairings that take place throughout Forrest's life. Like in the beginning, it's him and Jenny, and then in the middle part of his life, it's him and Bubba, and then later on in his life, it's him and Dan. It's him and Lieutenant Dan, and then later on, Jenny comes back in.
Yeah,
and these pairings that they do through the story is just really interesting way of showing friendship and how Forrest is such a pure individual that he's going to be a true friend to anybody.
Yeah.
And how Forrest is there for all these people for however long they are in his life for whatever they're going through.
Yeah.
And I know that was one theme that we talked about in the reviews, is that it's about friendship. And so, I mean, there's just so many life lessons you can take from this movie that
I think
they're beyond art. It's like beyond film. It's about life.
And if you notice, he literally is trying to make friends with everybody he can, even if they don't want to. He's still.
And even when he's striking up these different conversations with people, at first they don't want nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
But then they're like, they don't want to have to go away from him because he's got him. There.
Yeah, he's just a special person.
And he does exactly what he says he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. You guys want to? You got anything else for the first scene? You want to move on to scene 2?
Move on.
Let's get it.
All right. So 10 years later, Jenny and Forrest are in high school. Oh, let me tell you this real quick. So I actually found a website that literally breaks down year by year every single thing from the book and the movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Of everything that happened with Forrest.
Chronological.
So that's why I said 10 years later. I actually found there's literally a date from first scene to second scene.
Super fan.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where
AI
we see
did it.
the actual adult version of...
So Jenny and Forrest are in high school. Bullies in a truck chase Forrest. He runs through a team of football players practicing, and the coaches notice him. Forrest's athletic abilities earn him a football scholarship to the University of Alabama, where he becomes a star player. Forrest witnesses Governor Wallace's segregation speech while helping a girl with her books. Forrest and his team meet President John F. Kennedy, and Robert Kennedy are assassinated. He graduates from high school and joins the Army. We meet Bubba. Jenny poses for Playboy, and Forrest finds her singing and working at a strip club under the name Bobby Dillon. I know that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just...
Well, like he goes to play football, and who's there to see Forrest run? Bear Bryant.
Bear Bryant, yeah. So this is... Well, and we didn't really touch on this in the last scene, but in the last scene, you see how the movie begins to interweave American history with Forrest's life. So in the last scene, his mom owns like a boarding house or something, and Elvis comes to stay.
Yeah.
And like,
I totally forgot
he teaches Elvis how to do the dance.
The hip shake. Because
Yeah.
of the braces, he
And so,
show me how you wiggle
this is
them
where
hips.
that theme begins in the movie, where Forrest's life is woven through American history. And so it takes you on this journey, yes, of a man's life, but also through popular culture, politics, the war, and all this drama that's playing out during this formational time in American history in the 1960s.
He's just living his life. He just happens to be
it's
there
just
when...
the backdrop
and I know that
Forrest's
people
life.
criticize the movie. That one dude, he was taken because he said that, it's just happy-go-lucky or whatever. That's the whole point. That's the serendipity of his life, is that he doesn't ask for these things. It just sort of happens, and
Like
it's
I said,
a
he's just
happy
living his life.
accident. It's coincidence. It's serendipity. It's whatever you want to call it. And so you see that, and that's the joke of it, is that Forrest Gump, this unassuming guy, plays a role in all these significant moments in history. And that's what's funny about it, is because it puts this character who's not really comical, but the way that he handles life when he goes through these scenes, it makes it funny.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know history is happening.
No,
right?
He doesn't. He
just
really
handles-
doesn't know any better. I
He
mean,
just handles it in his own, unique Forrest way, and that's what makes it funny and compelling at the same time, because it's almost like an alternate view of history. Like all these historical facts because you've studied it in school or you read about it, but then this is like, oh no, but here's how it really happened.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump did this, and that's why Elvis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
which was a great scene, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like, an alternate version of history seen through his eyes. It's almost like, what makes Rocky IV hilarious is that Rocky helps end the Cold War.
Yeah.
Which it was a real thing, the rivalry between the Soviet Union, and that was a whole trope through the 80s with Reagan and all that, and you know that, but then it's like, oh yeah, but didn't you know that Rocky helped to negotiate that?
In the Cold War with a boxing match.
And that's the way it is with Forrest Gump. It's like, here now, the history, but here's the real story.
Yeah.
Through what happened during Forrest's life.
It also, in that going back to that first scene, you see his mama and Forrest walking down the street after they just got some groceries, and they see Elvis on the TV, and he starts dancing, and she's like,
she's hiding his eyes.
Keep your eyes away.
So Yeah, I remember the running scene very well, and there is a scene where they show him actually in one of the college football games where he's playing for the Crimson Tide, and he like catches, or no, somebody catches a kickoff. And they hand it to Forrest. Run!
Yeah. And he just takes off.
Yeah. And he keeps running through the band and out the end of the stadium.
He takes the band and all the chorus people out. Yeah. And then later on they have to hold up a sign. Stop. Forrest!
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I mean,
he says,
that's hilarious.
4 years of college goes by fast.
and this is also when you begin to see the breaking point between Jenny and Forrest.
Yeah.
So Jenny starts to go on her own path. Mm-hmm. And sort of living the wild hippie movement, and
gets
sort of
in the love bus to San Francisco.
Yeah, she gets. That's when she starts delving into music and drugs and the subculture and all of that. And so this is where you begin to see their paths separate.
Well, and then also in the scene where he witnesses the segregation speech, that scene I rewound it a couple times just to really get a good look at it. It still holds up on how they integrated him into that footage. Yeah. Like I can tell how they did it. They definitely had somebody there standing with him that was wearing a suit, and then he was behind him. I could definitely tell they were on a screen. I mean, you can't tell, but you can tell.
So some of these historical scenes remind me of some really interesting photographs that we have. There's a interesting photograph of President Lincoln's funeral procession. So when Lincoln was assassinated, there is a picture that's taken of, they took his body and they marched him through big cities, and he went through New York.
Yeah.
And there's one picture in that where there's a boy up in a window watching the parade go down, and the boy is Teddy Roosevelt.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
deep cut.
Yeah, it reminds me of those kind of historical photographs where you have a significant scene playing out, and then somebody else who's going to play a role in history is sort of like off in the background somewhere.
Yeah, so he's like the Forrest of that picture.
There's also a picture of Lincoln's inaugural address, I think from 1860, where he's giving a speech when he'd just been elected president, and I'm pretty sure John Wilkes Booth is in the crowd somewhere.
Oh, well, that wouldn't surprise me.
But and then of course he would assassinate him 4 years later.
Yeah.
So those kind of historical things exist, and the way they did that in the movie was we had never seen anything like that before in cinema. So it was really cool to see this archival footage used in a different way and to tell the story.
And Forrest didn't see it as integration when it was Alabama schools. He just saw a girl drop her book.
Yeah. And that's when he picks the book up for her, he literally goes and just walks in there.
Yeah. He does that because
there's a camera, filming, and he just waves and goes back in. He's just helping somebody. So he doesn't see all this stuff that the world's dealing with.
Right.
He just
saw somebody need help.
Yeah, that's all he saw.
Yeah, and that's one thing about that we touched on, and it runs through the whole movie, is that Forrest Gump is he's just a pure human being, and he just tells a simple story, and the way that he interacts with people, whether they are a president or whether they are a celebrity or just an average person, he treats them with dignity, he treats them with kindness, and it's just refreshing to see that. Yeah. In such a pure character.
He has no expectations from nobody.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely can't pass over when him and his team go visit the president.
Oh, yes.
And he drinks, what does he drink?
Dr. Pepper.
13? Is it 13 Dr. Peppers?
I must have him at 13 Dr. Pepper.
And then he goes up to shake his hand, and what does he say?
I gotta pay.
I gotta pay.
He's like, how does it feel to be an All-American?
I gotta pay.
I think he just doing his pee dance while he's...
And a few years later, somebody shot that man.
Yeah.
Some of this scene, the way it's laid out, you say here he meets Bubba. That's sort of like in the next scene when the draft happens and he goes into boot camp and all that.
Well, no, I mean he in this scene because he graduates from college and he meets because he doesn't get drafted yet.
Oh, okay.
He goes into the army. When he graduated, the army.
Oh yeah, the hand. Have you considered serving your country, son?
So he decides to join the army, and that's when he meets Bubba on the bus.
Which I thought that was such an awesome parallel from when he first gets on the bus at school and says, "I'm Forrest Gump," and then he gets on the bus to join the army. He's like, "I'm Forrest Gump." Nobody cares you are, you funky puss bucket. You're in the army now.
Yeah.
And who opens up a seat for him? Bubba. This is where Bubba comes in.
And this is where you get the whole speech on shrimp.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they said that the actor, he actually wore a fake lip to be able to gain that bigger
bottom
lip. Yeah.
So let's talk about that part because this is awesome. The boot camp. When they go through their training and everything, that is awesome.
Yeah.
I love the boot camp scene because you've seen it before. Like if you've seen Full Metal Jacket or you've seen any kind of war movie where they focus in on the training, I just love how Forrest Gump shines in this part right here.
Well, the what is it? The drill sergeant says, "What are you doing here?" Or "Why are you here?" And he's like, "To do whatever you say, Sergeant."
Yeah,
that's the most outstanding answer anybody's ever given me, Gump.
Yeah, I love the scene where, of course, they're cleaning the floor with the toothbrush and shrimp souffle and fried shrimp gumbo, and they're going through all the different ways you can fix shrimp, and they get to the end and. I think that's about it.
That's about it. And like Forrest stops.
And it just keeps going.
Goes back.
I love it too when they're working on their rifles.
Yeah.
And Forrest puts it together in like record time. Gump, why did you put your rifle together so quickly?
Because you told me to, drill sergeant.
Gump, you are the most outstanding war machine this country has ever produced. I love the drill sergeant is awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah, he is amazing.
Whoever they casted for that was great.
When he gets in, when he goes into the army, the last time he talked to Jenny was when he was getting out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, and she told him if you ever get in trouble, that's when he. Said they think they're sending me to Vietnam. No, that was
no. I mean that's at the end of the scene. But yeah, I mean when he finds. So okay, this whole scene is set up when they're all in bed, and a couple of his buddies throw him a Playboy magazine, and they see a picture of Jenny, or he sees a picture of Jenny in it.
And he gets mad,
and that's when she gets
wearing a college sweater.
Yeah, and she gets kicked out of college because she's wearing the college sweater.
Yeah.
So that's when he finds out where she's working, and she's working at a strip club. He embarrasses her. He tries to save her. You know, that's because the guy's being rude to her, throwing drinks at her.
First thing he does is punch him.
And punches him. Yeah, and then she runs out. And then they're walking, and then that's what, Doug, what you're talking about. She tells him that, because he said, I've been, basically, she's saying, I've been drafted.
Yeah, they're sending me a place called Vietnam.
Yeah, and she tells him to
run.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you ever get in trouble, just run.
And then that's literally what she's doing. Mm-hmm. If you notice that in every scene, she just keeps on running herself. Right. And she keeps on running away from him as well.
Yeah, that's very insightful, is that she's, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, how she's set up in the beginning of the movie to be a traumatized character. And she spends all of her adulthood running from her past, running from her trauma and her problems. And but, of course, or you're hoping as you watch it, that somehow these two are going to get together. Mm-hmm. They seem so unlikely to be a couple, but they do eventually. So, and then that's when the Vietnam War starts, right?
Next scene? Yeah, we got the next scene, yeah.
Okay, so, go ahead and read it.
Oh, so you guys got anything else for scene 2?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right, so scene 3. Forrest is drafted into the Vietnam War. We meet Lieutenant Dan Taylor. He writes Jenny describing what it's like being in Vietnam. His platoon is ambushed by Viet Cong soldiers. He saves several soldiers, including Lieutenant Dan, and finds Bubba before he dies. Forrest is wounded in the buttocks and is admitted to the Army hospital with surviving soldiers, including Lieutenant Dan. He learns the game of ping pong. For his bravery and instincts, he earns him the Medal of Honor and becomes a hero.
Yeah. The scene where they come in on the helicopter and they got CCR blaring over the radio is such an awesome scene. I mean, it's up there with like other Vietnam, because we've seen the Vietnam War portrayed so many times on screen. Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket. We were soldiers so many times, but this is a very, very memorable scene because you got the music blaring. They land. You meet Lieutenant Dan, and they're like partying.
Yeah.
Like, here's a barbecue. Here's a barbecue. Here's cases of beer.
Yeah.
Like, you want a steak? How do you want it cooked?
Always change your socks.
Yeah.
Every day.
He's like, what was it? Forrest's lines like, this was a lot like America, other than the forest, or as we say,
all the rain.
Yeah,
all the rain.
all the barbecue and beer. It was something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, so
because Lieutenant Dan just gives him 2 rules to change his socks, and
never to salute him. Never salute an officer.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, because snipers are looking to shoot him. An officer.
We were always looking for some man in the black pajamas.
I thought it was so funny that Lieutenant Dan, he was holding. I mean, we know where he was going, but he kept on holding a roll of toilet paper, just talking to him with it. And he got behind the stall, and he's like, "All right." Well, he was about to sit down, and then he gets back up and says one more rule, and then he just keeps on holding that toilet paper. And all right,
we're always looking for some guy named Charlie.
Yeah, that's what it was. Charlie. Yeah,
it was
Charlie.
Always stuff to do.
So there's a great scene in there, and it's very quick, but it's where you are first introduced to Lieutenant Dan, and Forrest talks about how Lieutenant Dan comes from a very long line of war heroes, and every one of his forefathers died in a major American conflict.
Yes.
And they have that scene where boom, boom, boom. There's
the
dead
Revolutionary War.
The dead body falls, and
Yeah.
it's a different family member from Lieutenant Dan's past, and he has that same mantle thrust upon him where he's determined that just like his great-grandfather and grandfather, he's going to die a glorious death in Vietnam, which is ironic because Vietnam is mostly considered one of those pointless conflicts.
Unnecessary wars.
Never should have got in. Yeah.
But it was just in his head that no matter what, he was going to die in a war.
Yeah,
that was his destiny to die in a war.
And
just like his ancestors.
Interesting that. Okay, here's another interesting pairing that begins this relationship that begins between Lieutenant Dan and Forrest.
Yeah,
the most unlikely, like the odd couple.
Yeah.
Because Lieutenant Dan is very serious and very determined, and he has a position of authority, and he's good looking and he's smart. Like he's got all these gifts and capabilities, and then here you have Forrest, and so
and also in that scene, that you see them stop. They're walking through the jungle, but you see them stop on that trail.
Yeah,
and that's when Forrest starts naming, or he's like, well, he's called Tex, but I don't understand why he's called Tex.
Yeah, he says he's from Montana.
Yeah,
but we call him Tex.
Yeah, from Dallas.
Yeah,
yeah. Those scenes in Vietnam were great, especially when the rain starts.
Yeah.
And I love the scene where he and Bubba are paired up, and they're sitting there, and it's dark, and the rain is coming down, and
Bubba walks up to him. He's like, "Forrest, I'm just gonna
I'll lean on your back, and that way our heads won't have to stay in the mud."
Yeah.
And he has this little scene there where he says, Bubba had a way of explaining things to me that I could understand.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a pure friendship because you got the feeling that Bubba was like on the same intelligence level as and somehow they got paired together, and this was a true friend. This was, besides Jenny, this was probably
his best friend.
His best friend ever.
Well, and that's when he tells him, he's like, when we get out of here, Forrest, I want you to join me, and
they make their plan together.
Once we win this war, we're gonna shrimp all these waters.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
That's where they make their brotherhood pact.
Yeah.
And then, of course, first time through, you don't know, but he's about to lose his best friend. And
and when they get ambushed, that was just insane. It was so quick. I've never experienced a war. I've seen footage of a war and everything, but it's just like that just seems so real to me. How the bullets were just flying by everybody. It was just all because the rain stopped.
The rain stopped.
As soon as the rain
sun
stopped,
come out.
the sun came out, and they're like, "Oh, it's bright," and then all of a sudden,
that was a great depiction of, and it's not a long war scene, but it gets the point across of
right away.
And I think if I'm remembering right, according to the Netflix documentary, they did that in one take.
Wow.
They only had one take to do the explosion, where he's running with Bubba on his back, or Lieutenant Dan, one of them, and they only did that. They did that in one take, and there was something that happened in that was a total accident. I can't remember what they talked about now, but it's pretty interesting. If you haven't seen that Netflix documentary, go back and watch it. It's how the movies made us, or the movies that made us. Go and check that out.
Well, and there was also one thing in that scene. He cared about. Lieutenant Dan told him. It was Bubba that told him to run. Mm-hmm. Told him to run, so he just started running. So he got out, but then he's like, "Oh no, Bubba!"
Along the way, he hears other people ask him for help.
Yeah. And he starts pulling them out one by one. But all he's focused on is to find Bubba. Mm-hmm. But then he runs into Lieutenant Dan, and Lieutenant Dan, he's trying to call in an airstrike and everything, and he's like, "No, leave me!" And he's like, "No, I can't."
Die here with my men.
And then he picks him up, and you can see his legs are all blown out and everything. Mm-hmm. He's so mad at Forrest for pulling him out like that.
Right.
He's like, I'm supposed to die here. I'm supposed to die here on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. Well, Forrest, we kind of didn't really say anything about that. But when Forrest meets somebody, when he met Bubba, Forrest sees it as, you're my friend. I'm going to be friends with you from here on out. And once he makes friends with you, just like he makes friends, he thinks he's made friends with Lieutenant Dan. Lieutenant Dan don't see Forrest as the same way.
No.
But Forrest sees him the same way, and that's just, they're ingrained in his mind, his world.
Well, I mean, he don't care what Dan says. He said he's going to save him. He's not going to leave him there to die. He's going to save him no matter what. Yeah,
and so here you see Forrest's first real loss in life.
Oh, yeah.
With the death scene there by the river where Bubba dies. Bubba doesn't make it, and he makes that promise that he's going to take care of his mama and all that. He's
like, "Hey, Bubba. Hey, Forrest." And then he just says, it kind of choked me up a little bit. He's like, "I just want to go home."
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's when Forrest just said, if I'd have known that was the last time I was going to talk to Bubba, I might have said something else.
Yeah. And then you get that line, and that's enough about that. Well, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
And then, but there is one funny scene that when he's running away from the explosion and he's talking about getting shot in the butt, something jumped up and bit me. But that scene, the death scene, is very poignant, and it's Forrest's first.
He learns about death, I guess.
Exposure to death, and really losing somebody that he loved.
Yeah,
and the thing about their friendship, like we pointed out, was so beautiful because they viewed each other as equals, whereas everybody else in Forrest's life viewed him as less than.
Mm-hmm. Like, stupid. You're
maybe
stupid.
Jenny. Yeah. It took Jenny a while to see him as more than just a pity. Yeah. Somebody to pity. But everybody else in Forrest's life views him as like pity, and I'll be nice to you because you're just dealt a bad hand in life.
Well, and also in that scene when they finally get back to the hospital or whatever you want to call it, you see that Lieutenant Dan had to get his legs. He lost his legs.
Yeah.
And Forrest is laying. I kind of laughed at the scene. Forrest is laying in the bed. I think he's just reading or something. I think he's asleep. And all of a sudden, you see Lieutenant Dan.
Reach up
and just pulls him right off the bed. And he's like, "I was supposed to die there."
Yeah.
And he just starts yelling him, and it's
another great scene in there is when he brings Lieutenant Dan ice cream.
Yeah, he puts it in the bed.
Some ice cream, Lieutenant Dan.
Ice cream. Only thing good about being shot in the butt was the ice cream.
Yeah. And
He had to get shot in the butt.
He had to he found the positive of it.
and then they put him in that makeshift gymnasium where they have the ping pong table set up, and he learns.
And it turns out he's really good at it.
Yeah, because it's simple. He's like, one thing.
The interesting thing about Forrest Gump is he excels at things that are like one-dimensional and simple and direct. Like putting together his rifle. Just, same thing every time, over and over again. Ping pong, like that, playing with himself. He just excelled at those things. Mowing the grass later on.
Yeah.
It's like, he was able to master these tasks that were just, I guess, more geared to him mentally, where it was very simple and direct what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, and then
he has the scene where he meets LBJ. He gets the Medal of Honor, and he shows him.
He's like, I'd like to see that.
I'd like to see that, son.
Doug and I were talking about this. It was so funny because he had this look of like, you want to see it now?
Yeah.
You want to see it now?
Yeah.
Really? And so he pulls his pants down, bends over.
Yeah. And what's so great about that is if you've ever read anything about LBJ, like the man and his personality, he was known to be a very crass and like really gross man. Like he had tons of profanity. He was a womanizer. He was just like a really nasty guy, and that fit him so perfectly.
I want to see that.
Well, I would like to see that wound on your butt.
Well, and the fact that they actually found footage of him laughing as he's walking away, which was hilarious. So it fit perfect so well. You guys got anything else for scene 3? I think is that about it in that one?
Yeah,
good.
that's it.
Okay. All right, so scene 4. Forrest arrives home touring Washington, D.C. and gets caught up in a Vietnam War protest and gives a speech and sees Jenny come out of the crowd yelling his name. Forrest sees Jenny get slapped by her boyfriend at a Black Panthers party and beats up the boyfriend. Jenny tells Forrest of her journey to the West Coast back to the East Coast. Jenny leaves again. Forrest tours the world on a ping pong competition and becomes a celebrity. Lieutenant Dan reappears and takes Forrest out on the town on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, great scenes right there.
So we see that Forrest he's taking pictures and stuff, and then he gets basically drafted into that. What are the protest people? I guess because they're trying to find veterans and stuff.
Yeah, because he was getting his Medal of Honor.
Yeah,
and then that's when he sees that around the infinity pool at the Washington Monument.
Yeah, and they want him to go up there and do a speech.
Yeah, they was trying for people to protest the war, and Forrest just happened to be. He was sightseeing.
Yeah,
he happened to be walking by. I was like, "Oh, get him!" And they pull him up there, and of course,
and they want him to get up there and give a speech where he's like hating on America and
tell the truth of what it was really like, and
the guy that's in the American flag shirt,
who is that?
He was an actual historical figure, like of the subculture and I cannot remember his name, but I remember reading about him. Like he was a real,
because I think that wasn't that a real protest.
That was a real protest. Yeah, and there's something interesting, too, in the Netflix documentary that they mentioned there about all the extras that they got to film that scene. And then they added a lot of them later on with CG.
CG, yeah.
And so that's a really cool scene when, Forrest gets up on stage and he's looking out over the pool, and then here comes Jenny.
Yep.
And you think, oh, this is the moment that it's gonna be true love, and they get together, and then she runs again. Yeah. One of the most quotable lines happens when he goes to the to fend for Jenny, and when she gets smacked and gets abused. And again, the pattern in Jenny's life, she's always going from one bad relationship to another, one sleazy guy to another, and the fight breaks out. And you know what he says? I'm sorry I ruined your Black Panther holiday.
And he has no idea. I mean, if he does understand where he's at, he's there for Jenny.
Yeah.
And what I thought was so funny, the look on Forrest's face changes when he sees her get slapped.
Yeah, because
It's
that
like-
Black Panther member is talking to him, like yelling him in his face, and all he sees is
All
Jenny.
he sees is Jenny get hurt, and you
Yeah.
see the expression on his face change to he went to kill her.
Yeah.
It snapped.
Yeah.
Knock all that soldier training come out. Like, "Ding."
I enjoy the scenes where he's going around Red China and all around the world, and he's doing his ping pong routine. Again, that's kind of like Rocky IV. Again, it's like,
yeah.
here is this sports figure that's involved in the Cold War again. I forget the name of the brand, but remember he does the commercial shooting. Flexolite ping pong paddles.
Flexolite ping pong
and
paddles.
he
he
they have
also,
like the cutout of him.
Yeah.
And he becomes like a big.
Well, he goes
celebrity.
on. I can't think of the guys. I recognize him so much. The talk show host. I recognize him, but I can't think. of
Ed
his
Sullivan.
name. Is that Ed Sullivan?
Probably.
I don't think it wasn't Ed Sullivan.
No.
No, that was this was after Ed Sullivan. I think he was on NBC.
Dick Van Dyke.
No, it wasn't Dick Van Dyke. He has
Johnny Carson.
No, it wasn't Johnny Carson.
I don't know.
He had another like late night show, but he was, and it was real footage.
Is this the one where he goes on there and he runs into
John Lennon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of that talk show's or the host's name, but he looks very familiar. But he was in Beetlejuice. He was the
when he tells it, he's an art dealer. You're a flake.
he was her like.
I don't remember. I remember the scene, but I don't know who the host was.
Yeah,
but the John Lennon scene is pretty cool.
Yeah, and
again, that's archival footage.
Yeah,
where they put him in there,
spliced him together like that.
He's sitting there. Actually, how many people would say I'd like to have a conversation with John Lennon, and he happens to be sitting beside her?
When he has no idea who John Lennon is.
No,
I mean he just thinks he's another guest on the show. Or
so this is when the same time that he and Lieutenant Dan get hooked back together again.
Yeah, it's literally right after
like
the talk
after
show.
the show.
It's in the alley or whatever.
Yeah.
And what's awesome about this is somebody makes fun of Forrest, and Lieutenant Dan sticks up for him.
Yeah.
It's the two like hookers that they pick up at the party, and she
calls him stupid.
Yeah, she tries to go over and kiss him, and Forrest is like, "No, you smell like cigarettes or whatever." And
tastes like cigarettes.
It tastes like cigarettes, and she's like, "What are you, stupid?" And he's like, "What'd you say?" And he pushes the other one off.
You don't call him stupid.
Yeah. Well, and also right before that, when he runs into Lieutenant Dan out of that door, he's like, "They gave you the Medal of Honor.
Congressional Medal of Honor.
More choice language. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Gary Sinise here, because his portrayal of post-war Lieutenant Dan is awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's miserable. He's a drunk.
Gave him long hair.
He's just got long, stringy hair. He has no reason to live. He hates his life.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that this movie sort of shines a light on that really wasn't talked about much at the time was PTSD.
Yeah.
And
Of
course, we know from other movies like Rambo, First Blood, that sort of broached the subject of, the Vietnam soldiers who returned home. They had PTSD and they were hated,
but they didn't know how to.
And they didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
There was no formal diagnosis of it.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Dan is one of these from that time period who was dealing with horrible PTSD and just dealt with it in all the wrong ways.
Well, it's like he's almost kind of just like giving up on life. He just drinks, his life is in a bottle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's all he does.
He goes to Forrest, tries to help him push his chair. You remember down the walkway? He's like, I can do it.
He spins backwards.
Into the street. Yeah.
So, but I love Gary Sinise playing that role. It's just a total curmudgeon. He hates life. He's so acidic and just
he nailed it.
Yeah.
Well, and also that scene, they go to a bar for New Year's and everything, and Forrest is telling him about his plan to go and
use his ping pong
money to buy a boat.
A fishing boat.
Yeah. And Gary Sinise is just or Lieutenant Dan's just laughing.
He makes a joke. The day you become a shrimp boat captain, I'm going to be your skipper.
I'll be your first mate. Yeah.
So that's an awesome scene where the ball drops, and they show it on TV. It's like 1979 or 1980 or something.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And they throw the confetti, and they're blowing the horns and everything. And Lieutenant Dan is there at the bar, and he has like the most miserable look on his face, and the confetti's like falling on top of him.
What am I celebrating?
Yeah, it's just it's funny and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think they did an incredible job with the special effects of removing Lieutenant Dan's legs.
Oh yeah.
If you watch the documentary on how they made it, like he wore green socks and then like a green screen, and then they were able to paint them out later on.
Well, and let's go back a scene like when he's pulling Forrest off the bed. That's where you first see his legs that were amputated.
Yeah,
amputated, and that's where it kind of grossed me out just looking at his legs because they were so like black from the wounds and everything. And it's crazy that he's moving like that. And they did.
He did a great job emulating somebody that doesn't have legs.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. You guys got anything else for scene 4?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So scene 5. 2 months later, Forrest continues his ping pong championship tour and stays at the this is really funny. Stays at the Watergate Hotel recommended by President Nixon. Forrest gets discharged from the Army and goes home to his mama. He keeps his promise to Bubba to start up a shrimping and buys a boat with his ping pong money. Forrest names his boat Jenny, while Jenny continues her drug-fueled journey. Lieutenant Dan joins Forrest as his first mate. Hurricane Carmen destroys all the shrimping boats except for Forrest's ship. And the shrimp comes flying in. He creates the company, Bubba Gump Company.
I love how they weave in the Watergate scandal.
Yes.
And how, again, Forrest Gump has a small role here in all of this. And so it's it's almost a punchline now.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, where you're wondering, okay, what else is Forrest Gump going to just accidentally run into?
Them people across the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Their power must be out because I seen flashlights are keeping me up.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where he goes home, to see his mom, and his mom has all that stuff that you were talking about, the cardboard cutouts, and his mom wants him, or the company told his mom to have Forrest use one of their paddles. And she was like, Forrest, if you use one of their paddles, we can get a check for $25,000. He's like, but Mama, I love my paddle. But she's like, come on, Forrest, it's $25,000 though.
Yeah. He's like,
so just pretend.
And he's like, hold it. She's like, oh, it looks good on you.
And did you notice the cardboard cutout? His eyes are closed.
Yeah.
The cardboard cutout.
Oh man, so good. It's funny when he gets discharged from the Army, like he's in there practicing.
Yeah.
And the guy comes and delivers the letter.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and just like that, the war was over. It's like, okay, well, that part of my life is over with. And
he's like, can I still play ping pong?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, you can, just not in the Army.
Yeah.
Not for the Army, yep.
So, the scene where he goes back to buy the boat and to start his shrimping business. Of course, he catches everything but the shrimp at first. He catches like a toilet seat, I think, in one scene, a boot, and just he doesn't have a clue what he's doing.
Shrimping is hard.
Before he bought the boat, he meets Bubba's mom, and his mom Bubba's mom has 5 or 6 other kids, and they also do something like they did with Lieutenant Dan. They go through her history as well.
Yes,
where she was her ancestors were servers for 3 other generations of
plantation
people.
owners.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So you knew that was eventually going to come where somebody's like, "You got bad luck, man. Every boat's got to have a name."
Yeah.
And of course,
there's only one name
and then
I could think of.
Yeah. Jenny. So I think the most powerful scene of this section of the movie is when the storm hits. And Lieutenant Dan is out there on the mast of the ship, and he's having it out with God.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he's a bitter man. he feels like he has been dealt an unfair, unjust hand in life. He's mad at God for how things have turned out, and he's literally like venting all of his anger and bitterness and all of his problems.
He blames Forrest and blames God for keeping him alive.
Yes. And Forrest is on the deck like he can't believe he's saying this stuff right now.
Yeah.
Like
he's on the borderline of blasphemy.
Yeah.
But it's a powerful scene because all the demons inside Lieutenant Dan are being exorcised in that moment, in the storm.
Yeah.
And, as a preacher, it's so biblical, too, that just like Job in the Old Testament, Job suffers greatly, and he finally hears the voice of God later on in the book of Job in the storm. When the tornado comes and God speaks from the whirlwind, it's almost taken directly from that. Here's Lieutenant Dan. He suffered greatly. He doesn't understand why he has been dealt this terrible blow in his life, and yet he hears the voice of God in the storm, and those demons inside of him are brought out, and he's a different man after that.
The very next day he sits there and he decides to jump off.
And Forrest says, "I think he made his peace with God."
Yeah.
And that was another scene, sorry, not to change the subject there, but that was another scene where they show his legs go through the boat, like, because, he didn't have the legs.
Yeah.
But that was another special effect that they used right there, that little gap. That wasn't even real, where he could just swing his legs around. But yeah, that was a very powerful scene, showing him swimming back.
And we find out, too, that the storm was providential in another way, because, as you mentioned in your review, all the other boats sank because they were tied to the dock or whatever, and because they were out, that somehow
they survived.
They survived it, and they were the only game in town now to do all the shrimping,
and they become very successful.
Very successful.
Oh, let me say this before we move on too farther. When Forrest is on his boat, he's not able to catch anything. This is before Lieutenant Dan shows up. All of a sudden, he sees Lieutenant Dan sitting at the dock.
Lieutenant Dan!
Well, he just jumps off the boat, and his boat just goes on, and you can see Lieutenant Dan just following the boat as it just goes by and crashes.
Tears a dock down. And
I thought that scene was so funny.
He's like, "What was that?" "That's my boat."
"Well, here you are, a shrimp boat captain. What are you doing here, Lieutenant Dan?" "Keep my promise."
He just dives off.
And he's like, "You wrote me a letter, you idiot."
It's so great. The pairing between and the thing is, Forrest Gump is completely undeterred by all of Lieutenant Dan's negativity, cynicism.
Total opposites.
Like it's almost like if you've ever had a conversation with a little kid, like little kids don't get sarcasm.
Yeah.
And they don't get certain kinds of humor. Like it just completely misses them. And it's almost like that with Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump. Is the sarcasm doesn't even register with him. He just doesn't even think about it, and it's funny.
Well, I think also, I think this is a scene because I mentioned that Jenny continues her drug-fueled journey. I think this is where we see her realize that she needs to do something about it. Like she's about to jump off the ledge.
Yeah. And I remember that because that's when Freebird's playing.
Yeah.
I think she had gotten beat again. Her eyes were bruised up.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, and she's on cocaine or whatever she's on, but she gets on that ledge and she's literally about to jump. She takes one foot off and then she realizes she jumps back and then she gets down and starts crying, and I think that's kind of like, all right,
her rock bottom.
I need to. Yeah, she hit rock bottom. Yes, exactly. So I think she realized I need to go back home. I think that's what she kind of realizes.
Yeah, let's go scene 6.
Yeah, okay, we'll go to scene 6. I was trying to think if there's anything else. Okay. Scene 6. Forrest runs home to see his mom before she dies from cancer. Forrest takes a job mowing grass at the Alabama State College while Lieutenant Dan runs the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company and invests into Apple. Jenny comes home to Forrest. He asks Jenny to marry him. She turns him down, and they spend the night together before she leaves again.
So this is, I another tough scene where Forrest again has to deal with death.
He gets the phone call. They're sitting at the
mama's
dock,
sick.
and he gets
Yeah.
the phone call. Yeah.
He jumps in the water.
And just starts, and then he just starts running once he gets on land, I guess.
Yeah, and it's the grass mowing scenes are pretty funny too.
Yeah. The fact that he takes a job without pay because he loves mowing grass.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you notice him mowing, like every line is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. He loves the order of it.
And then, of course, you mentioned he becomes a millionaire through the investments that Lieutenant Dan makes for him. He invested our money in some kind of fruit company.
Fruit company.
And they said we ain't got to worry about money no more.
Yeah.
One less thing.
There's a great scene when they take part of those earnings and they give the check to Bubba's mom.
Yeah, and she faints.
Yeah.
And then she gets her own. She gets a big mansion and gets her own servant.
The cook shrimp for her.
Yeah. Well, so going back to the whole, he gets the phone call about his mom dying. It's very sad because he comes home and he's like, "What's wrong, Mama?" And she's like, "I'm dying."
Yeah.
And it's almost like he has been through death before, but it's almost like at the same time he doesn't understand it at the same time. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's very heartbreaking.
Well, he never thought about losing his mom in his life.
Well, he probably never thought she would die. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That's when she was explaining to him that dying was a part of life.
And life is like a box of chocolates there again. And
Sally
those scenes are amazing between he and his mama.
Sally Field just knocked it out of the park.
And this is the thing, people that hate on this, how could you... Everybody's got a mama.
Yeah.
Everybody at a certain age loses their mama.
Yeah.
How could you not identify with those scenes where it's so visceral and it's so real, where you think about letting go of the one woman who loves you more than anybody else and Forrest doesn't know how to live without her. That's his rock in his life, and I love those scenes.
And that really changed him.
Yeah,
she was the one that was always there for him, that would always not treat him like he was, mentally challenged or anything like that. She was treating him normal.
And he says there something to the effect of, Mama died on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And we buried her under the tree.
Yeah. On a Tuesday.
Yeah. Of course, with that also comes, Jenny sort of moves in with him for a little bit.
Yeah,
and
she finally comes home.
You think, oh man, they're finally going to have a relationship. And
well, they go through like everything's normal. Like she moves in, they become like really good friends again, and they're eating dinner every night. And then
she bought Forrest some running shoes.
Yeah, she bought him some shoes and
newfangled Nikes.
Yeah,
and I think it finally hits him that he loves her. Like that's when he was like,
"I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is."
I think doesn't he say marry me?
Yeah.
And she's like, "You don't want to marry me."
She sees herself as damaged, and unlovable, and
he's too good for her.
And it's finally that shift has happened in the relationship where it was kind of the other way around. She didn't have the time of day for him. No. She never thought of him being a husband material because
just as a friend. That's all she saw.
Because he was mentally, not there. And now everything's turned around. She's wasted so much of her life, and she's so damaged and battered that she doesn't see herself as lovable.
No.
And it's this tragic thing where you want these two to have a romantic, storybook ending, and then it just doesn't happen.
No.
And to contrast that with those terrible reviews in the beginning, like, not everything works out in his life perfectly. Like all this hilarious stuff, and he gets to meet all these historical figures.
Really, nothing has went his.
He's had loss just like everybody else.
Yeah, and then the woman that he loves most of all, it doesn't work out. It doesn't end in a Hollywood type love story where they live happily ever after, and.
Well, and also this scene, this is where I think she kind of like, I don't know how to put it. Maybe not necessarily feel sorry for him, but she she goes and spends the night with him.
Mm-hmm.
She actually climbs in the window.
Yeah.
Like when she was a little kid.
And this is where they spend the night together. And then she just leaves again.
bails.
He has no idea.
Yeah.
He's still asleep. She leaves again and goes on her journey again. And like I was saying earlier, she keeps on running.
Mm-hmm.
She does not. She just keeps on running. She keeps on wanting to get the advice to him, but then she just wants to keep on doing it herself.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys got anything else for that scene?
It's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, excuse me. Final scene. Forrest embarks on a cross-country running journey, becoming a national sensation and inspiring many people along the way. He runs for 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, and 16 hours, covering 15,248 miles. Jenny sends Forrest a letter, and he goes to her house to find out he's a father. Jenny tells Forrest she's sick, and he brings her home, and they get married. A year later, Jenny dies. Forrest visits Jenny's grave and gets Forrest Jr. on the bus for his first day of school.
Mm-hmm. So the running scene, it's Forrest Gump's way of dealing with the grief in his life.
Yeah.
It's his catharsis. Like, he doesn't know what else to do. Mama's gone. Jenny's gone. I mean, he's got more money than he would ever need.
He's literally just sitting on the porch there, and he just decides
He's just lost in life.
start to run.
And he goes back to that original advice that Jenny gave him. You know, just run.
Yeah.
If you're ever in trouble.
And I love those scenes. We already mentioned it, but it's at first it's really quirky and weird, but then it becomes inspiring. And he sort of launches this sort of countercultural movement where all these people see him as some sort of like master of the universe, and they
really got it together.
this guy understands life, and he's here to teach us through running. And all these people join him in this cause, and it's not like that at all. It was his way of processing the grief in his life.
Well, okay, so along the run, he invents the smiley face.
Yes.
By complete accident.
By complete accident.
Yeah. That's the only part in this movie where you see it and you're like, okay, that's a bit of a stretch. Because
well, and then there's a bumper sticker guy, and he invents the shit happens.
That's
saying.
right. Yep.
Yeah. Because he steps in a pile.
Oh, man, you just stepped in the... It happens.
It happens.
What?
And then when he gets splashed with that mud, it's an 18-wheeler hits a mud puddle, and the guy just has to be walking by. Here, take this. It's a yellow T-shirt.
Yeah, he's like, this was an ugly. Nobody wanted
likes this color. And he wipes it off, and it looks like his face with the beard looks like the smiley face.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, and see, so basically in this scene, he literally runs from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I think he goes
kept running,
and he just goes to corner, and just,
he just
and
keeps
so this
going
is
back
where
and forth.
this is where we see all these beautiful scenes from coast to coast, landscapes. I mean, Arizona everywhere.
That's why we say that, you know, as you watch this movie, it's as much about this man's journey as it is about America, because he's moving through history and he's moving through across the country, and the music that goes along with it. It's just as much about a love story to that time period in America and the nation itself, what all it was going through, as it is about this really good story about this man's life.
Well, and then also this is where he kind of becomes he starts to become a little more famous because the newscasters are following him and stuff, and then like you were talking about, all these people they're getting something out of this guy that's just on a 14-day journey of running, and then he's like, he stops, and they're like, oh, he stopped.
He's going to say something.
He's going to say something.
I'm tired. What does he say? I'm tired now.
I think I'm just going to go home.
I think I'm just going to go home.
And he doesn't run. He turns around and just walks.
And the guy's like, what do we do now?
That's it. Yeah, I love that. That's so funny because they're waiting for, you know, some sort of pearls of wisdom to just fall from his lips. And
I guess they thought he was maybe like. I guess they thought he was
going
maybe
to
like a prophet or something.
Yeah, like he's some kind of cult leader or something. But I love the scene as he runs. You know, the beard gets longer and he looks like, you know, Charles Manson or something. And it's just again, you've never seen anything like this in a movie before.
No. And he's wearing a Bubba Gump hat.
Yeah.
He wears a Bubba Gump hat.
And let's talk about just a moment here Halloween costumes, because Forrest Gump has created some great Halloween moments. I have seen people dressed up as Forrest Gump in multiple scenes from the movie. I mean, year after year, I've seen people in the classic white suit. I've seen people dressed up like this version of Forrest Gump, the runner. I've seen people dressed up with him in the ping pong setup. This movie is so huge culturally that you get these awesome Halloween costumes every year, and we do a big event every year at church for Halloween, and I see them. And the moment I see them, I point them out, and I'll say something from Forrest Gump, and they'll yell back at me some quote, and it's just awesome.
Well, I actually, since you mentioned that, I actually have seen a buttocks costume. He's wearing it's a hospital gown, and it has like a bullet
bandage on his butt.
Bandage on the butt. Oh man,
so good.
Okay, so he's done telling that he's running. And they go back to the bench, and he's talking to that older lady.
Oh yeah, that's where it intersects.
Yeah,
the end of his running journey is actually where he's at.
It's where the movie starts.
Yeah. It starts.
And so he's telling her, he's like, yeah, I got this letter from Jenny or whatever, and he's like, it's I'm waiting for the so and so bus to go to this certain address, and she's like, well, that's only 4 blocks straight ahead. He's like, thank you, and he just takes off.
He didn't want to be rude and just get up, and he's like,
and so that's when he finds out where Jenny lives, and
by now we're in the 80s. Yeah, and that's where we learn about AIDS in the movie, because she gets sick from AIDS.
They don't, and see, I was reading all kinds of interviews about this. They don't directly say it, but the director himself has said, yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, it's obvious to all of us, but they don't directly say that it's AIDS, but it is AIDS. I mean,
you can tell it's the era.
Yeah, it's definitely the era. Yeah, and he, so she invites Forrest into her house. She's showing her around, and then her kid comes home. I don't know if you guys recognize Derek. It's probably, you said it's been a minute since you've seen it, right?
Aren't they watching Sesame Street?
No. The lady that brought Forrest Jr. home. I don't know if you recognize the actress. She was in all the Lethal Weapon movies as the psychiatrist that Mel Gibson kept on messing with. And she played a lot of moms in the 80s, and I just noticed. I was like, oh, hey, that's her. But so she brings Forrest Jr. home, and that's when Jenny said, "This is my son." And he's like,
it takes a minute for him to register.
You're a mama or something like that.
He doesn't even get it.
She's like, his name is Forrest.
It takes him a good minute to realize. And
those scenes between he and Forrest Jr. are they're awesome.
Well, and he's like, is he special? Like,
he's trying to say, is he smart, or is he like? Yeah,
he looked like he was Tom Hanks looked like he was about to just bust out in tears from in that scene. And she's like, no, he's super smart. He's perfect.
Head of his class.
And then that's when she's like, go ahead. And he goes over and sits with Forrest Jr.
Not in the chair.
Like, what are you watching? Say Sesame Street? Yeah.
Wasn't it Elmo, or was it Elmo or Cookie Monster on there? It was Sesame Street. Yeah.
Well, I don't remember, but they have that little moment there where they watch together, and so then you get the end of the story, the happily ever after scene for just a little bit.
Just for a little bit. Well,
they get married.
Well, they're at that park, and she tells him that I'm sick, and he's like, "Won't you come home with me, and I'll take care of you?" And she's like, "Would you marry me?" And he's like, or he says something like, "Yeah." So they decide to get married. She comes home, they get married, and then this is kind of another little tearful moment, because who shows up is Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan comes back
with his new legs.
And his wife is Vietnamese, ain't she?
Yeah.
So,
and he's like, Lieutenant Dan.
He's like, new legs, titanium, like the space show.
Yeah,
and that's when he says, special legs.
Special legs.
So there you see the parallel between he and Lieutenant Dan. They found that friendship, that common ground, and so it's
Lieutenant Dan's all cleaned up too.
Yeah, it's interesting that Forrest Gump starts out as handicapped in his legs, and then Lieutenant Dan ends up being handicapped at the end.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of full circle that goes on there. But in the middle, both of them found friendship, and Forrest helped Lieutenant Dan heal at the most dark and critical point of his life.
Yeah. Well, and then this is where that one scene where Forrest is bringing Jenny food while she's in bed. I keep on. I know it doesn't happen, but I keep on in my mind. I keep on thinking she's dead. Like that's the impression I'm getting. Like he walks in and she's asleep.
Well, because she's laying there just like his mama.
Yeah, and
but then it clicks.
But yeah, then she wakes up, and I don't exactly remember. I just watched it, but I don't exactly remember what she says and everything.
Of course, the burial scene, under the tree where he buries her by Mama is. I mean, that's just gut-wrenching. Mm-hmm. It's a tearjerker for sure. And, again, an Oscar-worthy performance there.
Forrest Jr. leaves her a note, but only she can read it. So he leaves it on her gravestone.
Yeah.
And then this is where we see Forrest Jr. mirroring Forrest from the beginning of the movie when he was getting on the bus.
And it's the same bus driver.
Yeah, it is.
It's from the beginning.
Yeah, she's
Dorothy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have that whole cyclical thing. The movie ends where it starts, and it's a complete story arc of Forrest Gump. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Greatly done.
All right, you guys got anything else? Anything else for that final scene before we wrap it up?
Nah.
No? Okay. All right, so I'm going to do my favorite category.
Did not know that.
John Travolta was originally choiced to play the title role and said that passing on the role was a mistake. Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, Matthew Broderick, Harry Anderson, Bill Paxton were also considered for the roles. For Jenny, Jodie Foster, Demi Moore, and Nicole Kidman were also considered.
I could see Jodie Foster.
Yeah, I could see her doing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For Bubba, Dave Chappelle.
No way.
David Alan Grier. Remember from
In Living Color?
Ice Cube.
Ice Cube? Oh my gosh, no way.
And then for Lieutenant Dan was Kevin Bacon. He was the first choice, but then they went with
Gary Sinise.
They made the right choice.
Yeah.
And then here's one last one. Kurt Russell did the voice for Elvis Presley, but he was uncredited.
Huh.
And that scene where he was dancing, Forrest was dancing for him.
Had the voice in the background.
And you could hear Elvis, that was Kurt Russell.
Interesting.
And I rewound it, and you can tell it's Kurt Russell.
Wow.
I mean,
that's cool.
You know, it makes sense, I guess. Doug, do you want to give your number one quote?
I always thought it was just hilarious, and it's not one that you can quote it, but it takes another person, like, those must be comfortable shoes, and they have to look at it and say, my feet hurt.
Yeah, that's fine.
That was just really funny to me. That stuck with me.
Derek?
So there's two lines that I have used over and over again in life from Forrest Gump. The first one is, stupid is as stupid does, which I don't even really know what that means.
Yeah.
But I've used it so many times, like it just in sometimes insulting, or sometimes when people ask me, why did you do that? Or
yeah.
And then the other one is, because you told me to, drill sergeant.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I've used that one a lot too. Like,
because you told me to.
And both of them are just, they're so applicable to so many different situations.
It's only a partial line, but I like the whole scenario of, would you say it was it Lyndon Johnson saying, I'd like to see that. He's like, I got shot in the buttocks, and he's like, I'd like to see that. And he's like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah.
And then he bends over. That's my I think it's my favorite line, quote, whatever you want to call it. Okay, Doug, what about favorite best part of the movie for you?
best part of the movie. It has to be the best part of the movie is the first time when he's outrunning the bullies and he runs across the football field.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And Bear Bryant, because as soon as Forrest hits the end zone, it's when the quarterback is throwing it. And Forrest beats the ball to the other end of the field. That was a really cool scene.
Derek?
I already referenced my favorite scene, and I think it's the scene in the storm.
Okay, yeah.
And it's not even Forrest's main scene. I just think Lieutenant Dan playing that role of the antagonist against God in the storm and having that shouting match. It's just so powerful to me.
No, that's great.
That's a great moment for me.
I think the one, and I actually did already mention this, was the scene where he sees Lieutenant Dan at the dock and he jumps off the boat and the boat crashes. And I thought it was so funny. Like I said, Lieutenant Dan was just his eyes were just following the boat as Forrest was swimming up. Oh, it's so funny. But yeah, I think that's probably my favorite one. Favorite character, Doug?
Favorite character? Oh, man. One of my favorite characters is that old country doctor that put the braces on his legs.
We got you straightened out, boy, didn't we?
Yeah. He just it's a classic small town doc. Yeah, that was cool.
Derek?
Well, I know it's sort of expected, but it's got to be Forrest Gump. I mean, that's the role of a lifetime. Yeah.
Forrest definitely is up there, but I'm going to say Lieutenant Dan. I just loved his performance. I mean, he definitely went through several different changes throughout the entire timeline of Forrest Gump.
Arc, yeah.
I mean, he went from a guy that's willing to lay down his life for his honor in the war, and then he went through Vietnam veteran, and then he fixed himself basically by the end of the movie. He healed himself, basically. But yeah, I'm going to say Lieutenant Dan. All right, so Doug, do you want to give final thoughts and your score on the movie?
My final thoughts is absolutely, it's going to be one of the greatest movies of all time. It's up there. I mean, it just...
Remember, we did this out of 5 out of 5.
5, yeah. And I'm going to have to give it 5.
You give it 5?
I'm going to give it 5, yeah. Okay. It's just amazing. Everything we touched on, you can't really pick a favorite because the whole movie is a favorite. Everything in it, you just drawn to.
Derek, what about your final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts are Forrest Gump is one of those movies that generally the first time you see it, you never forget it. It impacts you in such a powerful way. Emotionally, and just the story arc, the journey that you take with Forrest through his life from childhood to adulthood, and then again the historical overtones throughout, where you see how he's moving through history, the portrayals, the acting, oh my gosh, the writing, the music. I mean, this movie delivers in every possible way. It will have you laughing. It will have you crying. I mean, it's an easy 5 out of 5 for me. 5. And Forrest Gump is one of those unique movies that goes beyond film and beyond just a good movie. It's got so much about life in there. And like I said, no matter who you are, you can find something in there that you identify with. And it's just, to me, it's going to be timeless.
Derek, I mean, I actually agree with both of you guys. I mean, this is an amazing movie. I was thinking about this, like, I don't even think I needed to watch it again the other day. I mean, it had been almost 20 years since I'd watched it. But... because I remember so much about it, but it was nice to have a refresher on it. And, I mean, the movie is just... I mean, there were a few scenes that I got a little choked up on. I mean, Forrest he's such an amazing, perfect character in that movie. I'm just going to give it a 5 as well. So, that's a 5.
There you go.
There you go.
If you haven't seen Forrest Gump, what are you doing with your life? Make time to go watch it and watch it again and again, and
share it with your family.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the greatest watches that I had with this was with my wife because she had never seen it.
Wow. Oh, really?
And I didn't know that until after we'd gotten married. And we were going to watch a movie, and she's like, well, I want to watch something I've never seen before. And I started naming off titles, and there it was in my DVD case. And she said, Forrest Gump, I've never seen that before. So watching it with her and watching her watch it was so awesome because you got to almost relive it again and see the impact that it made on her the first time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's going to be around. It's going to be a staple forever.
Did she enjoy it?
I loved it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Say she hated that movie.
No.
I mean, I know Beth loved it. Like she came home and I was trying to finish it for the podcast. I was just trying to finish up the last 30 minutes, and she didn't even pick up her phone. She was just glued to the TV the whole time.
It's one of those movies where no matter when it's playing or no matter what part in the movie it's in, you can pick it up and watch it.
Definitely. That's all for today's episode, folks. We hope you enjoyed our 15,248-mile journey across the country in the world of 1994's Forrest Gump. Join us next time on Video Rental as we tackle another classic movie. Until then, stay cinematic and remember, stupid is as stupid does.